All right, so let's go one more thing here because we're in a time constraint because we got a lot to record here. But I want to go over this because I just got a tweet just popped up and I'm Hugo. You're here. Hugo, were you working in WWE when Eddie was champ?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So this is perfect because So I relate a story. We were talking about guys that had guys that used to like talk back to Vince, like Shawn Michaels and stuff. Like Shawn, Shawn had this relation
Warrior.
with Vince where he was just Warrior would cut AK. And I had heard now this came from I wasn't reporting this as news. Obviously, I was never there, so I was not an eyewitness. Somebody had told me that Eddie was kind of like that with Vince, and that he wouldn't let Vince be a pushover on him. And the way the stories were laid, I mean, this is years ago. The story would be like Vince would give him something, Eddie like something stupid to do, and Eddie'd be like, "I'm not doing that. That's stupid." Like he would like you know to defend himself like with Vince, but Vince and him had a great relationship. I think people kind of miss that part. Okay, that Eddie was like one of those guys you just could not like push around creatively and like like he would stand up for himself. And we all know Eddie Guerrero. I don't he seems like that type of guy to me. Even when he was getting pushed by Vince, he was the type of guy that would stand up for himself. Well, Chavo heard that clip that we did on YouTube, and he's responded and says, "Sorry,
What did
at
he
the real disco."
respond?
He responded. I'm going to read the tweet. It says,
Oh,
"Sorry, at the
love
real
it.
disco, you are incorrect. Eddie never cussed out Vince McMahon like you said on the K100 podcast. Eddie had nothing but respect for Vince and knew who his boss was. Not saying Eddie didn't discuss his angles, but Eddie never had disrespectful words towards Vince." Okay, and I'm like, all right, that's like I've got Hugo here now, which is perfect. What was Eddie's relationship like with Vince McMahon?
Okay. I love Chavo and Eddie. When Eddie accepted Christ, just like Shawn Michaels, I'm a pastor too. We became like instant brothers. And Eddie Guerrero, when he defended the title of Madison Square Garden, the same night that Benoit, I don't mention his name often, but I'll mention it here. It was a big night for them too, and Eddie had retained the title. The party afterwards, it was like over 1,000 people, the governor, mayor, all these big, Hollywood stars and musicians. And Vicky, the little girls, my wife, God rest her soul, and myself, we were there. I said, Eddie, I said, man, I feel so proud of you. He says, let's do something first. And he says, what is it, Brother Hugo? And we prayed. And all this was our big guy, our big champion. And he took like 5 minutes and thanking God for him being alive. And I bring this up not as a point of evangelizing no one, but as a part of when he got pissed off. I mean, it didn't matter if it was Vince or whatever. You better be careful because he will tell you off. But that didn't happen, frequently.
Right, exactly. But it had
yeah,
you can see it happening with everybody can see that happening with Eddie a couple times, right?
Yeah, but it did happen. But he was said, Vince, can I speak to you? And they will go in. Nobody else, not Shane, nobody else, not Kevin Dunn from TV, no one. It was just him together. And usually, when they didn't go into an office, they go far away from where the big trucks are there. And after like 6-7 minutes, you will see Vince hug him. Listen, Vince loved Eddie. Vince loved Eddie. And I don't think Eddie will disrespect him, but he will tell him when he was off. He did.
Right.
But I never saw him yelling. I think, to me, Eddie was not just a wonderful performer inside, but he would take time to teach other people his trade. And Vince knew that. So when he complained, Vince never shut him up. If there was one guy that Vince would give him time, it would be Eddie, because Eddie will not be on top of him all the time. And I will confide on you guys that sometimes he wasn't happy with the finishes, and he didn't give the this, that. He will do it. And then after the show, before Vince got in his limousine, you will see him talk in the corner. And then by the next show, it will be somehow miraculously fixed. He was a good businessman. The point
I was trying to make is that I'm like I said, the details are like in context. Like I'm not saying he'd be the guy who cuts out Vince McMahon. Eddie's not a guy that you would, if he felt he was being disrespected, he would let you know.
Yes,
that's right. So that's what I'm trying to get over with. But Shawn Michaels is like, he was way worse than Eddie, obviously. Yeah. But Shawn was like the same type. If he thought he didn't like an angle, he would let Vince know. That's all the stories are trying to say. That Eddie Guerrero was not one of those guys that you look at the history of the business. All these guys that have basically just been pushed around by Vince McMahon and never stood up for themselves. Eddie Guerrero was one of those guys, this handful of guys that would stand up for himself. And And you can absolutely see that. We've known the guy. Like you could definitely see Eddie doing that, But I never saw him, and I was not there in WCW. But Eddie was not the type of guy that you would push around and speak up for himself, So like that's all I was saying. So I just wanted to clarify that.
And not only with his death, not only did we miss some great years ahead of him, but I think that the best was yet to come, because I think creatively, when he would have gone full-time creatively and maybe analyst on the Spanish shows too, I think that he would have been so productive because he had that quality of a wrestling mind. People have good ideas, but good ideas don't necessarily make good business. A good idea in our business works when it projects the right image at the right moment, that it will draw you TV ratings and put on the seats. And I think Eddie, we missed out on a big, huge part. I think that an analyst like him on a Spanish show and somebody of a consultant type would have been fantastic for Vince.
Tony, you got anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, I just have to add, bro. There are no words to express what a monumental loss he was creatively in the ring, as an inspiration to wrestlers. You see how much everybody looks up to him. But Eddie, what I can tell you is this: Eddie was very ultra mega respectful, because his dad raised like 4 men, and he disciplined all of them. Like, he was a strict disciplinarian. He didn't discipline Eddie that much because he was the youngest one and he was already kind of old, but his brothers like kept him in check really good. And he understood the business, had a huge respect for the business. There were times in Mexico where he wanted to go off on Peña, and I was like, calm down, I'll fix it for you. Eddie was very business, even sometimes against his own detriment, even though it hurt his character sometimes. And I'm talking about Mexico, okay? But he would always do business, and he is the type of guy that when enough was enough, he would speak his mind. But if he ever spoke his mind to Vince, it was no disrespect. It was like, bro, I'm not going to do this, and this is the reason why.
Yeah. Vince will say
that's all I'm saying. Somebody relayed that story to me.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not, that's all I was saying. Sorry.
When you saw those vignettes of the low riders and Eddie giving you this, and if you were next to the gorilla position, Vince was his biggest fan. And Vince could have a bad day, and Eddie will say just 2 words, like Spanglish, and Vince will laugh his ass out.
I guess with that, it would make you laugh.
Yes. Yeah. In Eddie, he had that, like I said, he's so much missed because he was just a good person with a great talent.
Yo, what up? This is Conan, and I host Keeping It 100, my co-host, Disco Inferno, unfortunately.
Well, I'd say you're my co-host.
Listen, every Thursday here on Spreaker, we talk pro wrestling, sports, movies, music, TV, pop culture, and some politics. It's everything the rest of the pro wrestling podcasts are not.
Tune in to hear myself, the superior one, educate and inform.
Tune in to hear me bury Disco.
That's very disrespectful.
Join us every Thursday on Spreaker and keep it 100. Boom!